What's up, guys? We're back again. Listen, we're going to figure out an intro. We don't have an intro yet. We don't have a name to this podcast yet. But today we're going to be talking about, basically want to wrap up like this series of our testimonies, right? I shared a bit of my testimony. She shared a bit of her testimony. And believe me, there's so many things missing out of those testimonies that like we didn't even have the time to share, you know? And I was telling her earlier, I was like, damn, I didn't even talk about all the times I got arrested. Never, there's so many gaps. But you guys get the gist of it, and you guys can see where we came from. And at the end of the day, one thing that she was saying is that my wife brought up, which is very important, is we have to highlight how God is glorified in all of that process and all of that story. And I'm like, 100%. Like, we're not here to glorify who we were, what we were doing. Because at the end of the day, that was definitely sending us in the wrong direction and was gonna have a bad outcome. But yeah, it's important to glorify God because at the end of the day, His hand was like truly over the entire process. Like, I can never deny that, and I've heard it all my life. Like, my mom has always told me, you have no idea how God protected you from this, God protected you from that. When my friends were getting arrested for the same things I was doing, it was like, and I was getting sent to counseling, or I was getting sent to do community service, and I never had to step a foot inside of a cell, like in juvie or jail.
Right.
Like that was a blessing. So many close calls with, just the people I was hanging out with. Like, anything could have gone wrong so many times.
Yeah.
And there's violence out there. The people that some fights, getting knives pulled on me, guns pulled on me, like. That I'm not gonna act like that happened a lot, but got a gun pulled on me once, got a knife pulled on me once. Just like the constant confrontation of the people that I was hanging with, like, it's just, there's risk in all of that. And with all that happening, with all that being said, like, at the core of our testimonies, we've identified that a lack of identity is really the reason why we were going in the direction that we were going in. And we didn't really realize that until adults, but that's the case with a lot of people. It's just a lack of identity, and I don't know, once you identify that, I feel like things can begin to change.
Absolutely. I think that who we are as adults, we're shaped, right? As we're kids, our family dynamics, things that happen or didn't happen. And yeah, I think it's a conversation we have often, because I think it's things that you and I have come to terms, discovering who we are and discovering why we are the way that we are, especially as we're parents now. And so I think identity is one for sure, where when you learn to identify your roots, then you can begin to identify, oh yeah, this happened and this happened and this happened, and this is why I am the way that I am. So I agree, identity is a huge one. And at the core of who we are in our testimonies, there is a lot of lack of identity.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, I went so many years without knowing that that was a core issue with me, like, but I remember now that I've identified that, like, I remember how that played a role in me being a kid, looking up to people and being like, oh, that guy looks cool, I want to be like him.
Right.
And just looking for a role model in a bunch of different people.
Like choosing who you want to look like.
Yeah, because I didn't have a role model that was right there with me. Hey, buddy, this is what you got to do. This is the right way to go. I didn't have that, so I looked everywhere else for it. And that just kept going,
Yeah.
High school, like, and then going through phases, and then into adulthood. Like, it's just crazy. I don't think I really pinpointed it until I was like
recently.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy, so we like to read books and I think a lot of our growth, I mean, I know for me, all of my growth has been through the books that I've read and the books that I've learned from. And I think one book that has helped you a lot is the Fathered by God book.
Yeah,
right? It has helped you identify a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's incredible.
That's a great book. The book is called Fathered by God. I forget the name of the author. Do you know?
Oh my gosh, no.
And
I'm blanked right now.
He wrote another book. What is it? Something Wild and Free, or Anyways, Fathered by God. It's an amazing book. I've listened to it on Audible, and I'm listening to it for a second time now. And just for me as a dad, it has really helped me be able to consider the different stages of, being a boy to a young man to becoming a man. As a kid, your kids don't know that they're going through these different stages.
Oh, yeah.
So it's really the responsibility of a father
Of the parents.
to be aware of, like, okay, they're in this stage right now, and this is what I have to give them. This is what they need. The first years they need nurturing. Then they start to grow up a little bit, and they need to be able to deal with challenges.
Yeah.
And then as they're becoming a man, they need to. It's so much. There's so much depth in that book.
Can you recap it, like, if you could? What's the main focus about it for people that are like, what is it about?
I listened to the whole thing a while back, so I don't remember everything all the way to the end. But as I've been listening to it again, I'm at like chapter 2 right now, and it's really just I think in the first chapter it kind of intros you into all the stages that a man goes through from a kid to a man. It talks about how a lot of men are not like complete men, which is crazy, because then you start to look out into the world and it's like, oh snap,
You start realizing
literally everybody, pretty much everybody, has either not had a great father or has not had a father. And you can tell through so many things. Like, man, it talks about the importance of getting your kids out, being physical, dealing with challenges, getting their hands dirty. The importance of at an early stage allowing them to be creative and play, with their imagination, and letting that stage play out. And just playfulness is a big part of the first stage. Then they start to grow into, like, again, those challenges, and us helping them walk through these challenges. And into becoming a man, it talks about, like, man, I'm not the best at recapping it, but it's like saying, like, at some point he talks about like spending time on a farm. I think he's talking about his story, and he talks about spending time on a farm with his grandpa, and like learning to ride a horse, and just like, I don't know, that's people. A lot of men aren't raised like that nowadays,
right. And that's just like the important part of childhood in general, like men and women, like boys and girls. And that's a big part on why we homeschool, because we have learned to see that school is not just academically, it's holistically. And so the importance of stages, it's like from 0 to 1, it's a baby, and you nurture. And as you're nurturing, you nurture the brain, and you nurture the heart, and you nurture the body. And then from ages like 1 to 3, the toddler stage, it's a lot of play, dramatic play, reading, like limiting screens or no screens is best. And then 4, 5, 6, they're learning to be more independent of your parents. So anyway, I love this. This is like my jam. Talking about stages. And one thing I always tell people, parenting will be hard if you don't understand the stages. And that's one thing I was so intentional about. And then I would bring it to you when I would read books. And the hardest part is, like, I think for us, the hardest part was 8, 9, 10 with Z, and learning they're no longer little, and they're on their way to be a tween, and then on their way to be a teen. And these gaps matter so much, especially as a boy and the dad. Right? And so as you're speaking about this is a different book, but it's speaking psychologically, like the psychology that is connected to it, the brain, it's wired different, because now you're going through changes, body changes and hormones. And we think, oh my gosh, he's being so rebellious, he doesn't want to listen, now he's talking back. But because now they're growing, and they know, oh, I'm not attached to you, I'm going to test how far I can go. And if you don't understand, first off, because it happened to us, I was like, my sweet boy, what is happening? I didn't understand. I hadn't done the research. And then I got a book called No Longer Little, and then it explains the stages. And I'm like, oh, my son is changing because he's growing. And if we as parents need to set the boundary, hey, we want to communicate, we want to hear what you have to say, but there's limits and there's ways you speak to me, right? And so, again, bringing it back to like a father, a lot of men, we can trace it back and back and back. Like your parents per se, because they're a little bit older, were raised differently.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot of the machismo era. Aquí se hace lo que yo diga y punto,
Yeah.
you know? And now we can go through like the gentle parenting and there's like no boundaries.
Yeah.
And then that's also not okay.
Yeah.
That's like permissive
I
parenting.
feel like every generation goes through just like
I'm not going to do that.
exactly.
And then it can be another extreme.
And then it's a little bit extreme on
Right.
that end, and it's like, yeah, you got to
Yeah.
find your balance.
Your
You got to
balance,
find
right.
where you want to land.
And I think
Take
one
a
of
little
the
bit of
things
both.
that
Yeah.
helped me so much is to know discipline in the word. It means to teach.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I would tell the
That's
boys.
a big one right there.
I
Say it
would
again.
tell discipline means to teach.
Yeah.
And we would think discipline is hit and spank. When you think about the word discipline, what do you think?
Yeah.
It's not to teach. And that literally the Bible says, discipline your children, teach them. And so that was a big one that hit me. And I would tell the boys, I have to discipline. Our job is to discipline you. And it doesn't mean hit you, spank you, scream at you. It means let's teach you.
Yeah.
What you did was not okay. Let's try it again. Right?
And even I had to learn. So, like, you've always dove into these books that are about psychology or about kids' stages. So you've taught me a lot. I remember when you first started bringing that up, I was like you would stop me and be like, yo, are you disciplining? Like, do you know disciplining
Or punishing.
means, or punishing? That's what you would say.
Because it's so different.
Yeah, you're like, are you punishing or are you disciplining? Because disciplining means to teach. And I was like, all right, let me slow
And
down.
punishment means like, I'm going to punish you and you're going to feel it.
Yeah.
And that is so traumatic for your children.
Yeah.
We were punished.
Yeah.
You know,
And it kind of comes as at first it would come as instinct, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
because it's what we're
right.
used to, and you
it's
think like
learning, unlearning. I'm
go.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was one thing, because I don't know if this happens to you guys or to you, but for me as a mom now, I remember moments that marked my life. Like my mama would be like, you're not going to talk back to me. Boom. Like smack me. And I was like, but I remember the feeling. Like I remember in my head, I'm like, oh, I hate her. And I was like 6 or 7 or 10 or 14. Who knows? And it was always like, oh, I hate her. Right? I didn't hate her. I hated that she treated me like that, because I remember I would always think like, I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
Why does she always have to do that?
Yeah.
And it would create anger inside of me. And so now as a mom, like you said, they do things like talking back is a huge one for me.
Yeah.
I'm like, do not talk back to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, like, I can remember the feeling. So one, I can react and want to do the same. Or 2 is remember little me and remember how I felt.
Yeah.
And we know our kids' characters, right? So we know how to discipline in that area. But I remember, and that's where it became big, like, okay, hold on, I don't need to scream at you. And now these are the words we tell the boys. Like, you're so smart, why do I have to tell you again? You know? But again, just knowing discipline versus punishment.
And one thing I'll say, what you just said, is like reassuring them that instead of saying you're being a bully or you are a bully to your brothers, you say, hey, you're not a bully, right? So don't act like one. Or don't do the things that a bully would do. Or you're a good brother, you're a good leader.
Exactly,
Don't-
that part.
Don't be.
Remind them of who they are.
Yeah, and that's goes back to what what we're talking about, which is that now you're instilling an identity into them, which they kind of need that help, you
And
need to give
holding
it to
them accountable to it. I want to share this and then we can continue. But on Sunday, I teach kids at my church, ages 10 through 12. And I remember on Sunday, I had like 15 or 16 kids. And when I have a lot, it's like, oh God, give me grace. And I told them, hey guys, I'm going to tell you a secret. And they love it when I tell them my tea. And I'm like, you guys want to know a secret? And they're like, yeah, what? I said, when I have more than 10 kids, it's very chaotic. I said, but you guys are all leaders and you guys all know how to respect and be kind to each other. So let's do that today. I'm like, who's the leader here? And they all say, I'm like, you're all leaders. I said, so let's just remind our friend if they're talking to us, hey, let's wait, or don't listen to them. Like, let's wait until it's our turn to speak or whatever. But that made a difference. And I was telling my mom how, like, when just in general, children, my husband, our friends, when we speak life unto people, you can see the way that their demeanor changes. And we see it with with our boys.
Yeah.
And I saw it that day. And when I said that, I kid you not, like, their faces lit up. Like, because now you're reminding them their identity.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you are so loved, and you are chosen, and you are a leader.
Mm-hmm.
So be a leader, be a good leader.
Yeah.
Right? And now they're like, yeah, and they remember.
Yeah.
Instead of when we're labeling and punishing,
Yeah.
right? It's what happened to us. You're a troublemaker. You're this. You don't listen. So it's like, man, whatever. Like, she's always tripping.
Or you start accepting it. And you're like, I'm just a troublemaker.
So you start living up to it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
you start
what I'm
living up to
saying.
that.
You start living up to it. When you're
Yeah.
like, you never listen. You're like, whatever. She's going to tell me I don't listen anyway.
I mean, people always say the power of the tongue too, you know, like it's just.
That's what the Bible says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to be careful with that as a parent. Like, don't label your kid. Don't make them believe that there's something that you don't want them to be, right?
Yeah.
Remind them instead that they are better, that they are greater than that.
Right. And it's crazy because as you say that, there's a verse I think that says, like, there's power in the tongue to like build up or die down. And you only have two options. With your words, you can build people up or you can knock them down.
Yeah.
As a parent, who are you being?
Yeah.
As a spouse, who are you being?
Yeah.
Are you building him up or are you knocking him down?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
And oh man, I hold myself to that with the boys, with you. I'm like, I don't want to traumatize them. I know maybe in a way I will. I don't know how, but I pray, like, Lord, help me. This is my highest calling. To me, being a mother, being a wife is my highest calling. And because I do it unto the Lord.
Where do you think the lack of identity starts?
For people or for me?
For you?
For me, it was when I was raised by a single mother, you know, and I think all the good of me, I'm gonna cry. All the good of me came from my mom.
Yeah.
I'm gonna cry. And all like the bad was like everything that I lacked. And we pinpointed, and it was like I didn't have a dad and I didn't have a father figure. So I can see it now. And I cry because I'm like, I kind of feel bad for little me in a sense. You know, like, oh man, like, I'm so sorry. You'll never know what it's like to have a dad. And it's okay. I'm just crying because I feel bad for myself, but like, I promise I'm healing. For me, it was that, you know, because I think about it, and I was actually listening to something recently, and they said, psychologist, Dr. Amen, he said, you can have a mom and she did all the things right, but if you lacked a father, it's so different. Like, you will forever miss that part.
Yeah.
And that made sense to me because I was like, why was I like that? My mom was intentional. She was intentional. She disciplined, sometimes good, sometimes not good, you know, in ways that hurt me, maybe, like hurt my heart, you know, but she did her best, and I don't hold her to anything beyond her best. You know, she did her best. She had 2 jobs. We lacked nothing. You know, she couldn't put the part that I lacked.
Yeah.
Like, she didn't choose for my dad to pass. You know what I mean? And so that's a whole different thing. And I didn't realize it until, again, I studied my behaviors, and I'm like, whoa, that makes sense. Like, you guys can literally Google search, how does a person act when they don't have a father? A woman, you know, praise God, I wasn't promiscuous. But as a little girl, better yet, as a teenager, it was wanting attention from guys, especially, right? Because in a sense, it gave me like that identity, right? Or whatever. And like that sucks because I was 12, girl. I had no business wanting attention from guys. But again, it's also what I was taught through what I watched, what I listened to, the area I grew up in. Like I lived in some apartments and I watched the older girls always like outside with their boyfriends and stuff. And I was like, oh, I can't wait, you know?
Yeah.
Or we romanticize how men are supposed to treat women,
Yeah.
right? Like, I'm going to be his world and whatever. Like, it's really crazy. But that's what I thought I had to be, right? And
Yeah.
so I think for me, that's where it started. Like, I see now. And again, I study this because it heals who I am. And it makes sense who I am. But there's parts that were like not okay where I held you to the standard.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And now I needed Norby to feed.
Yeah.
Like, you're not paying attention to me and you're not telling me that I'm beautiful and you're not speaking life onto me. What is wrong with you? And then it's like, what is wrong with you? Wait, what is wrong with me?
That felt like
If
a
you're
cup
not-
that was never going to be filled anyways.
Exactly.
Either, even if I did, like, it felt like I couldn't fill that
And
cup.
it was stressful for you.
And it felt like that wasn't. I remember
It's not your job.
we went to counseling one time and they
Yeah.
were like, "That's it. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not my job."
It's not your job, but
Sure, we should be able to do that out of our own heart as a husband,
As
as
a
a man,
spouse,
as a
right.
spouse. Like,
just in marriage,
you
though.
should be able to do that, but it's not your job. It
Right.
doesn't need. I don't know.
But that's the part, though, that when a woman and a man, because I think it can go both ways,
Yeah.
when they don't understand that, they expect it.
Yeah.
It even happens when you have kids
Mhm.
and you expect your kids to glorify. Like when you're a people pleaser, you expect people to glorify everything you do.
Yeah.
And you're like freaking out if they don't.
Yeah.
And so it can happen in every area. That's why it's important. Wait, why am I acting like this? Where did I lack, or where do I lack that I think I have to prove myself?
Yeah.
And so anyway, I held you to that standard. And I think, you know, because I held you to the standard, I was feeling a lot of like rejection.
Mhm.
But it wasn't rejection. You just didn't know what to do because it was not your responsibility.
Yeah. And
And
and then on the contrary, like, I never had that example in my
Right.
home where it was like, where it wasn't my first instinct to be romantic,
Right.
to pour onto you the way that, like, to give you everything you wanted. That
To
wasn't
treat
my
me like
first
a rose,
instinct, man.
like a little fragile person.
That
No.
was something that, and even then, it's not my natural instinct, right?
But what has changed that I have realized it, and I don't hold you to that anymore.
Yeah.
But I had to walk that through with the Lord.
Mhm.
And it was, we go back to episode 1. Go watch it. I'm just kidding. We go back to the Lord saying surrender, right? And I had to surrender the expectations that I have of you.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean I don't hold you to a standard,
Exactly.
right?
It doesn't mean that.
but I had to surrender my selfish expectations.
Yeah.
Because if I got ready and you were not like, wow, you look good, I would be like, I'm
And I
so
do tell you
ugly.
every time.
I'm so this. But when I was not okay, I didn't even know it. It was just through sitting with the Lord. And then
Yeah.
the Lord showing me.
Yeah.
And praise God for God. My goodness. But when I understood that, then I'm like, okay, it's not your job. Like, I do this because I journaled it, right?
Mhm.
Journaling, wait, who am I?
Mhm.
Who is Monse?
Yeah.
And giving it to the Lord, like, hey, this was not given, whatever. Heal my heart. Help me, right?
Mhm.
And if it's something within me, then Lord, show me. And the Lord showed me,
Yeah.
but I think that's when I even was able to be happier because I detached myself from you.
Mhm.
I detached myself from motherhood or
Mhm.
even leadership. Like, if all of these things were stripped from me, who am I?
Yeah.
And I have to know, we all have to know how to stand without the thing that defines us. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, if you took everything away from me, I think it's not just Monse is a mom, she's a wife. If I had a career, oh, she's this amazing thing. No, like, I know who I am, and I don't need people's approval in a sense, because I know who the Lord has made me to be.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you grew up with a single mom. I, on the contrary, grew up with both parents, which you think, I guess that's better in a sense, and like you got it, but I think, I don't know, our parents were learning how to be parents, just like every parent is learning to be parents. I think my dad came from Mexico over here when he was like 16 years old.
Yes.
As an older brother.
Yeah.
He's the oldest of, 12, I think?
I think so.
And he left Mexico, immigrated over here, came to work, sending money back, surviving out here.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have his father 16 and on, right? Like, not to be there and to guide him and be with him step by step. He had to enter manhood as a teenager. That's the crazy thing about that book, Fathered by God, too. It's just like sometimes people, kids are forced to grow up, you know, whether they lose their father early or some kind of traumatic thing happens, or even a situation like that. I've got to immigrate because I've got to become a man for my family. You got to become a man too early. And you basically have to skip a stage, right? And it's like, in reality, there's a big void there. But I recognize that with you know, I've always thought about that with my pops. Like, he didn't necessarily have his pops there through his teenage years. And I'll say, you know, I had both parents, but they're much older, and my siblings are older than me too. My brother's 8 years older than me. My sister's 12 years older than me. And then my oldest brother's 14 years older than me. So it's a big gap. Like, I remember my brother went to college when I was like, I don't even remember. I'm trying to think, 5 maybe. He went to university, moved out. My sister got married when I was like, I think 10, 11. And she dipped. And then my older brother, who I spent the most time with, Nestor, he's 8 years older than me, and you know, he ended up going to UCLA too. And around then I was probably like 12. But I remember my childhood, like, I played by myself a lot too. You know, I played by myself. I had to use my imagination. I didn't play with my mom. I didn't play with my dad. I remember I would ask my mom all the time if she could have another kid so that I could have someone to play with.
Tell them your story about Tijuana.
The what? Tijuana? Dude. One time we're in Tijuana, and
poor kid.
Some kid lost his parents, and he was crying because he lost his parents. And I went to go talk to him, and I was like, "Oh, you lost your parents?" Like, I was like, "Don't worry." Like, I was like, "You can hang out with me." I was like, "You can come home with me. I have toys." And I was like,
"You're like, I'm living the American dream."
I was excited. I was like, I could have a new brother. Oh, it's insane when you think about that. That's crazy. So sad. Yeah. And then they ended up finding his parent like 5 minutes
you were
later.
Sad.
I was like, oh man, it could have been cool. I'm pretty sure I asked my mom, like, if we can't find his parents, can he come home with me? Like, oh man. But I say that to say, like, I kind of grew up by myself, you know. It kind of felt like a single, like, I don't want to say that because I had siblings, but like, it kind of felt like a single child in a sense, you know. Like, I always felt like I had to learn everything by myself. That's the truth, man. I can't say that nobody ever used their words to guide me and be like, hey, this is what you got to do. But I do remember early on my brothers and my parents being like, yo, what are you going to do? I remember Junior saying, what are you going to do when you grow up? What college do you want to go to? That was always a part of the conversation. Yeah. So, like, in my head, I did always think, I'm going to go to college, you know, even though as the years progressed and I got more rebellious and I started messing up in school, like, I wasn't on the trajectory of going to a university. You know, my grades sucked. I just wasn't doing well in school. And
your brothers who did go to school, they love, like,
they were doing
learning.
Good.
They can do that.
Yeah, and I just was different.
Just not your jam.
It just wasn't my thing. But I think a lot of men can. I know a lot of men can relate to that part of not having the guidance that they needed
Yeah.
Man, that's why I gotta say, like, that book Fathered by God is so crazy, because it really, as a man, it'll expose to you, oh, this is what I went through, this is what I lacked, this is why I am the way that I am. And also, if you're a father, it's gonna show you, dang, okay, this is why it's important for me to pour certain things onto my kids in each stage, you know. There's a lot that we have present. To learn as unfinished men, as incomplete men. Like, I mean, I can say I'm an incomplete man in a sense, you know. Like, there's a lot of things I didn't get, you know. And
now you have to learn.
That I have to learn.
You didn't get it, and now you're like, I have to learn how to do it. You know.
I mean, you've seen me every step of the way. Like, I don't know, learning.
I mean, I think we grew up together.
We did.
So you've watched me. Yeah. And I've watched you. Yeah. Because, like, when we got married, I didn't know how to cook.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember telling her, telling your mom, or no, your mom, I remember her telling you when we told her that you were pregnant. I always remember her telling you, like, you're going to have to learn how to cook. You know that, right? Like, basically telling you, like, well, you just stepped into being a mom. You just stepped into being a wife. And you were like, no, I'm not. Like, or I don't remember. What did you say?
So, before we had kids, we were boyfriend, girlfriend. Mm-hmm. But I never thought I was going to marry you.
Yeah.
So, I always used to say, like, I'm going to be a pediatrician. I'm going to be a boss babe. This was my thought. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be a boss babe, and I'm going to make so much money that when I come home, my husband is going to be like, oh, honey, food is ready, and, like, spoiling me. That was my thought.
That was what. Yeah.
And I remember my mom being like, you know, you're gonna have to cook for him. I was like, I'm not gonna have to cook for him. Like, that ain't my man. Like, we're in a relationship, but we're not married. I remember that.
Yeah.
And then when you got, that was that. I don't remember.
Yeah. I always remember this story my way, but
yeah, no. But when we did tell her we were pregnant, I always want to say pregnant now. When we were pregnant. Then she said, like, you're gonna have to learn how to cook now. Yeah. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah. Do you remember when I learned how to drive as well? I learned how to drive manual transmission.
Yeah. That was fun.
Squeaky. That was fun. It was squeaky. My first car ever. I wanted to learn how to drive manual transmission. I don't know why, but I don't even know. I think because my dad drove manual transmission, like, I was like,
because it was like, it's cool.
It was just like, it's cool. Like, you know, you feel.
And it was the car you wanted. And it was manual transition, actually.
Yeah. Well, initially I wanted like a Miata, but then I ended up getting a Honda Civic because I was too tall for the Miata, remember?
Yeah.
And then I got that Honda Civic, and I remember my pops took me on a drive to learn how to drive manual transmission. And it's funny, like, I kept stalling, and he was like, "Why are you doing that?" I was like, "I don't even know what I'm doing." And that was essentially the first day of training, just driving around the block. And I was like, nah, I'm going to just go do this on my own. I was like, I'm going to just learn. And the next day, I think my dad couldn't. He must have been working or something. And I was just like, dude, let's go drive around the city and let's just practice. And we went to like Culver City, I think.
Well, we were looking for a gelato spot that we fell in love with.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah. Was it in Culver?
Yes, but we didn't remember where because we were like 18 and we had never been there.
Yeah, we went one time, no?
With your brother.
We went one time with my brother, and then we were like, dude, let's go to that gelato spot. It was so good. We didn't even know where it was. We were just like, I think it's over that
City,
way.
Something.
Let's just go. We're going to find it. You know, 18 years old, man, just like, man, we'll find it. Let's go. And and I just drove second day on my own, and I just kept stalling all over the city. It was, you know, I didn't care though. I was like, I'm going to learn. I'm going to figure this out. Remember, I couldn't even talk to you. And I didn't care. She would talk to me while driving, and I was like, don't talk to me like I can't even focus on you.
Or like, I wanted to hold your hand.
I'm just trying to.
And you'd be like.
Like, when she would talk to me, I'd get distracted and be like, no, like, I'd start messing up. I was like, don't talk to me. I can't listen to you right now. I just need to focus.
Yeah.
Man, we really grew up together.
No, but that time we went to over there.
Oh, yeah.
And we were in the red light.
Mm-hmm. And some girl, I think we were on a hill, and I kept stalling. We were on a hill,
but we were at a red light also.
Yeah, and then I was
like... So nos topamos con ella at the red light. She was already mad.
Yeah, there was a lady behind me. Going uphill, manual transmission, if you know, it's like your car basically starts falling back. So you got to balance. You got to hit the gas so that it starts going up. And if you don't do that well, then your car will stall. And this lady, did she pass us up? I think she might have passed us up and flipped us off.
Yeah.
She flipped me off.
She flipped us off. She's like, learn how to drive.
Yeah.
And we just started cracking up. I was like, he's learning.
It's what I'm doing.
That's what we're doing. That was so funny. We couldn't even be mad.
Yeah.
That was actually hilarious.
That was hilarious. Yeah, man. I mean, even that, it's like, it just goes to show there's value in being a father. Like, I know when my sons are at that age, like, having had that experience, I'm like, man, I want to be there every step of the way. Man, maybe even they'll learn how to drive manual transmission. I think I would encourage that. And I want to be able to be there every step of the way. And it teaches you to kind of realize, okay, I got to be careful with how I teach them, every time. And I try to do that now. When they're on a skateboard, when they're on a bike, like I let them know, hey, you're going to mess up, you're going to fail, and that is okay.
Right.
Because sometimes they're quick to say, I can't do it, I suck at this, I'm not good. Yeah. And I'm just like, dude, it's not that you're not good. And even you're not good, and it's okay. Like, you've never done this.
Yeah.
But guess what?
Exactly.
Remember when you didn't know how to ride a bike, and now you know how? Remember when you didn't know how to skate, and now you know how? Remember when they started swimming and the same thing? Nigel was putting himself down. I'm not going to be able to swim. And I'm like, dude, just like you figured everything else out, you're going to figure this out. Just keep going. Learning how to read, all that. And
one thing I like to tell them a lot is you don't know it yet.
Yeah.
Because you're validating. Yeah, you don't know it.
Yeah.
But you're going to learn it.
Yeah.
And I always tell them, you don't know it yet.
Yeah.
That's it. We're going to get to it.
Anything you want to learn, you can learn.
Exactly.
Anything you want to get good at, you can
anything
just
you set
practice.
your mind to.
Yeah, you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But, I mean, just that lack of identity was something that I struggled with all my life. Again, from a kid to a teen to an adult. And you see that in so many different ways. There's a lot of consequences to having a lack of identity. Having a lack of identity and not knowing who you are and being confident in this is who I am, this is what I'm good at, I'm loved, I don't need to find love anywhere else. If you lack that, then, I mean, I don't know, the consequences, there's so many roads.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
Sorry. Because I feel like with the lack of identity, it's not just like, it comes also with lack of nurture.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were not nurtured appropriately, you will feel unloved in a sense. But it kind of goes a little bit hand in hand. Like when you are nurtured, nurturing. Because identity could be like who I am, right? Yeah. Kind of like labels you. It's important to be a part of a group. Because if you're, let's say, you're a gang member, that's your identity. That's your family. Yeah. But then it's also like the nurture part. Like when the lack of nurture is the lack of love. People nurture in different ways. But it's also like the lack of love. Or people show love in a different way. For example, some parents show love. I'm going to work so hard for you to lack nothing. But they're lacking time and they're lacking attention and they're lacking warmth. Does that make sense? Yeah. So now it's like, well, I had everything, but I didn't have love. I had everything, but I wanted my parents. So there was something you said that reminded me of like that lack of identity could also come with the lack of nurture.
It comes from every stage. It's every single stage. If lack of nurture, then growing up, I mean, because you can be nurtured and then not have a man. Well, talking about boys specifically, I guess this applies to girls as well. I'm not a girl dad, but so I don't fully know everything that a girl requires yet. But even a boy becoming a tween, all that, like, and a teenager, like, they could have been nurtured, but they could be overly nurtured too, and they could lack that guidance into becoming a man. And that still feeds into lack of identity. So it's really every stage. Every stage requires a different type of catering and guidance and You know what I'm saying? So
And that's also that part that you said, like, you're an incomplete man,
yeah,
is important, because now as parents, our responsibility is to kind of heal holistically
heal ourselves, and then
so that we don't repeat it, because what's not healed will be repeated,
yeah,
intentionally or unintentionally,
Yeah.
with which unintentionally is worse,
yeah,
you know. So like you're saying, in every stage, so we need to know what broke us or what didn't work, so that we can now kind of heal it,
mm-hmm,
and then bring it to the table for our kids, like be able to know how to be that,
yeah,
because then we won't know how to be that, and
Yeah.
then we won't know how to give that to them.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And especially with boys, like how you said, in every stage, right? Especially because we have boys, teaching them, because the truth is they're going to be the head of their home.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be guiding.
And when you have that lack of identity, you know, it again, it sends everybody in a different direction. But like, if you go back and listen to our testimonies, then you'll understand that that's why we went the way that we went. Like, for me, it was rebellion. I chose to not listen to my parents and to just do my own thing, and to go far into like really searching for validation in other places.
Yeah.
And I remember, I mean, when I think about it now, it's like getting love from my friends, you know, for being wild and for being, you know what I'm saying, for all the stuff we were doing back then, like the drinking and getting crazy. Like, you know, they had a nickname for my alter ego when I would become something else, when I would drink or get high or something,
Yeah.
because I would just get wild and like down for anything. And it's like, when you really think about that at the core, damn, that was like,
They were bringing you acceptance.
yeah, it's
who
like
you
validation,
Yeah.
and the alcohol and the drugs allowed me to be a version of me that wasn't, you know, I wasn't naturally, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm getting accepted for that version of me, so I feel like that version of me is better than this version of
Yeah.
me.
Was it because you felt free with them?
I think, I don't know. I mean, I did feel free, but
Right.
I don't know if that's because of what it was. I think, again, I think it's as simple as just validation, you know, and getting
Yeah.
validation. Like, that even transferred into my adulthood. Like, put aside
Yeah.
the teenage stuff. Once we had our kids, and I had to pursue a career, and I became a people pleaser. Like, I changed, and
Through your career.
yeah, through my career, I became a people pleaser. People, you know, pleasing my clients, and I put that as number one on my book. Like, that was my top priority.
Yeah.
Please my clients. And I went into the extreme. I didn't know the healthy balance of like also having boundaries with my clients. I was not putting boundaries on my clients for years, and
Yeah.
my whole goal was, as long as they're happy, as long as they like me, as long as they like the work that I'm doing, like, that was top priority.
Because you
And I
felt like
didn't-
you had to prove yourself.
I felt I had to prove
Yeah.
myself. I did. I felt like I had to prove myself because I felt that I was competing with other people that went to art school and took advantage of their art school, that went to college, to film school. And here I am. I got a baby on the way, and like, I was just kicking it with the homies and doing graffiti, and now I'm trying to build something out of this. And it's like, I'm not the ideal person. I don't necessarily fit in this mold of, you know, directors and all that, because everybody I saw was different from me.
Yeah.
And so I became a people pleaser because I felt that I was competing with that. And that stuck around for a long time, because as I did start to build my career, then that started to become my identity,
Right.
because people were like, oh my gosh, dude, everything you're doing is so great. And I start getting people telling me that everything I'm doing is amazing and they're proud of me. And so now I'm getting recognition,
Right.
and now I'm getting that validation again. Right now I'm getting validation from everybody for something positive,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and that became my identity. I felt that if I lost that in any way, then I was a failure, or I would lose that validation. And I would just that was my identity. I couldn't lose that. Once I got a certain level of clients, like, I was scared to lose those clients because now that was my identity. Oh, he's that guy who does this.
But
for
do you
so and so.
remember also, like, because you were so good at what you did, that in a sense, now it was like your identity that you were getting a little cocky,
Yeah, I was getting cocky.
a little prideful. And I would
was
tell
getting
you,
cocky.
like,
Because, not to sound cocky, but I was good at what I did.
Right.
And yeah, I was not being humble about it.
yeah.
And I was like, man, I got this. Like, yeah, but
Yeah.
I remember.
Well, and I wanted to say that because I remember at the beginning when you just started, you would feel really uncomfortable going into some
yes.
like high top places, and you were like,
I felt like a minority.
I'm just a yes,
I felt like a
you were like,
minority.
I'm just a valley kid, and I would tell you, like, dude, you're more than that. Your craft has gotten you here.
I used to be ashamed in a sense of being a valley kid, growing up in the
way
valley.
You spoke, remember?
The way I spoke, I felt like I had to change my whole identity, like,
yeah,
which sucks. I wish I would have just been proud of who I was and
you were
been
learning,
the real
again,
me.
it goes back to not having nobody lead you through it.
Yeah.
And you had to learn it on your
Yeah,
own.
because all of a sudden I was in rooms where truly I was a minority, where like I might have been the only Hispanic, and there was a lot of, when I started, like, it was mostly a lot of white people, and I just didn't feel like I fit in, and I felt like they had something that was so natural, and I would look at them from this lens of like, dang man, like, how do I like fit into this circle and be as natural? And it took me a long time, and then it wasn't until I started getting these, you know, these accolades of you know, getting big clients, that I started to have this little confidence of like, okay, I could fit in the circle now, and
but
now
also,
people were respecting me.
I think it helped you a lot too when you started working with Nip.
Of course.
Like, because I remember that's when your confidence started picking up.
Yeah.
Because you also saw his confidence and the way that they moved.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And I was that was a dream job right there. So I was like, of course that gave me so much confidence, and that gave me, but that also became my identity for a moment, you know, like.
So I wanted to say, I said this because when you started, you would go into these places and you would feel like a little bit unworthy, or like, why am I here?
Yeah.
Right. And I remember I would tell you, like, dude, like, you're amazing at what you do. Then you got this work with Nip, and then you became more confident. That then, if you didn't like the importance of balancing, because first you were like, I'm unworthy, and then you were like, boom, everyone is praising my accolades, my videos, everything that you did. That then it started getting a little bit cocky, a little bit prideful. I remember that.
But you know, you saw that side of me more than anything because I'm comfortable with you.
Yeah.
But on the outside,
oh
like,
yeah, for sure.
The truth is, I was playing it humble regardless, because it's
because you are humble,
and
you really
and
are
that's
humble.
what most people saw.
Right. That's true. That's true.
That's what most people saw. They didn't see me as a cocky dude because I wasn't being that with everybody else. You know me best.
Yeah.
And you saw me behind the scenes, like, of course, man, I killed it. I could do this. I could do this better than so and so.
Yeah.
And
it would just worry me as a person.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, don't get cocky.
Yeah, you were the one that was always, you were always checking
like,
me and telling me like, stop. And I was like, all right,
like,
all
the
right,
Lord,
let me tone it down,
I would always be like, thank you, Jesus, for this gift.
Yes.
Because I didn't want you to get cocky, but again, the healthy balance of like knowing who you are without being attached, right?
But even then, when I look back at that time, it's so crazy because my work was so much my identity. And again, those years, like, I just felt like it all started also with the pressure of becoming a father. I felt the pressure of having to provide, and I've just felt that in those years, boom, head down, grind. And I remember telling you, like, man, my kid doesn't need me for the first 5 years. Like, I just need to hustle.
Yeah.
I just need to make money and build something out of this career because I'm starting from scratch right now. And I told you, he doesn't need me for the first 5 years. Like, by then I need to build something.
Yeah.
He needs you, and then he's gonna need me. And I didn't pump the brakes until 8 years, you know. I didn't start pumping the brakes until 8 years, and that caused a lot of problems with us, which that's a whole nother conversation too. Just being in the grind. But my work became my identity. My performance became my identity, and I cared so much about what my clients thought about me, and how they felt about me, and their validation of how they loved my work mattered so much. Their validation mattered. And it wasn't until I remember there was a point, and you remember, we started having conversations, and that just felt like a lot of pressure. You remember this, I think, when at some point there was like this crossroads of like, I just felt this pressure of people pleasing all the time. Like, it was just catching up, and it was too much. And there was a point where it's like, I'm tired, like, and I think I started praying more around that season. And again, the biggest struggle I ever had was when people would tell me, just put your career in God's hands. I was like, I could never do that, like, because God doesn't want this for me, and I was like, I need to build my career now. Like, I don't have time to wait on God. Like, that was one of my biggest struggles. And around that time, I was like, all right, I think I got to kind of practice that, though it was the furthest thing from, like, it was the hardest thing for me, but I felt like I have to kind of practice that. And around this time, I realized, I was like, dang, man, like, I'm scared to lose some of these clients, because I feel that if I lose these clients, people will not value me. People won't like me as much anymore. And I'm going to lose all my credit, in a sense, my reputation, and my career will just go downhill. And because I won't have this high level of clients. And then I just came to a point where it was like, it was too much to carry. And I was like, man, you know what? I'm tired of being this version of me that's just like people pleasing. And I was like, it's a lot. I started to realize that, like, my identity was truly my career. And I was like, that's not healthy. And I just remember that was getting like too much to carry, and I just remember feeling like, man, like, I just want people to like me for me. Like, I felt like there was a time where I was myself, and then as I was building my career, I let that go, and I prioritized being this professional videographer, and people always complimented me on being like, you're so professional, you're so and of course everybody was happy because I was just catering to them, and I'm just giving to them. And they weren't getting my personality, they weren't getting me. And I didn't think you can do both.
I think because you also like shun everything, like friendships, family parties,
I cut
everything,
everybody off.
So I think you didn't know how to even turn off grind mode for a long time.
For a lot of those years, I mean, man, all my homies I disconnected from, because I felt that I had to let everything go, and in order for me to go ahead and move forward. I don't know why, but and I didn't go to family parties for years. Remember, like, I was just like, I'm working, I don't have time. And
I say that because you're saying they didn't get your personality, because I feel like you were just like, I need to work, there's no time for play.
Everything was grind mode, everything was professionalism, everything was.
So because you were not having the friendships, you didn't know how to tap out or how to show people that.
And again, I didn't think that you can do both. I didn't think you can have a personality with your clients and be professional at the same time and get the job done. Or friendship.
Because I remember for a long time I would tell you, they're your friends, and you were like, they're not my friends. And you wouldn't let people in also.
I wouldn't let people in. I wasn't making any friends at all. I had no friends for a lot of years.
Because you didn't want to.
I didn't want to, but that's a whole nother conversation too. I had been hurt by people who did me wrong, and that's a whole nother thing, But finally, I made the decision, and I was like, man, like, I'm just gonna be me. Let me not think about how I need to be in these rooms, and let me take off this pressure, and I'm gonna just be outspoken. I'm gonna just be me, because I think I would bite my tongue a lot, because it was like, I wasn't just being me. I wasn't just being free. I was like, I had to be just professional. I was quiet in the room all the time, and
like, I'm here to just do my job. That's it.
I'm just here to do my job. They don't like me for me. They like me for my performance. So like that's all I was focused on. And then I was like, man, I'm gonna just be me, and not worry about it. And I'd rather be me, and you hate me for it or you love me for it. And that finally kicked in. Again, I was praying around that time as well. And once I did that, once I made that decision, dang, everything's changed. Because then at that point, I had a real confidence, not cocky confidence, but just real confidence where, like, man, I could just, I know who I am. I know what I bring to the table.
How do you think praying helped you?
I think that was my first time, like, kind of just accepting, all right, I need to let God in a little bit because I've been carrying this weight all by myself.
Was it like, what do you say, like surrendering?
Yeah, just surrendering and being like, whatever happens with my career, like, I don't need to control it. And it's like, whatever happens with my career, like, all right, God got me. And it's like, I at this point, I care more. I care less about control, you know, if that means letting go of all this weight that I'm carrying, because that's stressful, you know, to try to control everything and it not go your way, and it has to, and that's just so much weight.
Because it was now spilling over to home life.
Yeah, our home life was bad at that point. Yeah. It was bad. So yeah, I think that was just the beginning though, because that's been an ongoing struggle for me regardless, to really be able to let go and say, God, you got this.
Let go and let God.
Yeah, that's been my hardest struggle. I think I'm way closer now. I'm feeling way better about that now. While I pray, and I'll just be like, all right, God, this, come on, help me out.
And isn't it crazy? Oh, I love this about you and about God, that every time you pray and you ask the Lord for something, it's like boom.
Yeah.
You're literally like, I prayed about this yesterday or today. And boom.
I think, you know what's crazy is I think that used to happen a lot. And I feel like there's been a season where it didn't happen that way. More recently. I feel like there's been a season of that. What you're saying is true. Like, there was a moment where I would pray and boom, God would answer same day, next day. And it was like, dang, bro. Like, that's...
Not like, dang, bro, to God.
I was like, dang, like, God loves me. Like, He is there. He is taking care of me. And then I think I went so many years without putting it in God's hands when I knew what I was supposed to do, and I think I just kept not doing what I was supposed to do. And I knew it, you know? And I was like, I'm going to just still take control. I'm going to still walk this path the way that I want to. I'm going to do things the way I want to. We should have been doing this podcast a long time ago. We should have been leaders a long time ago, you know? And because it's not about us. Like, God instills that in us, you know what I'm saying? So... We could have been ready a long time ago. We could have been ready at 18 years old in a sense, right? But it's fine. It's everything at its own time. I do feel that I held myself back a bit.
I feel like recently you'll say that, like, I prayed about this, or I'm stressed about this, and I prayed, and then it would happen. Like recently, like this last year, and I'm like, dude, the Lord really loves you, because I've been praying about this for 10 years and still not here.
Yeah.
But I feel like the Lord's always shown you, I don't know, He's so gracious to you.
Yeah.
And I always have said, like, you just have to ask.
Yeah.
But I think it takes more for a man to surrender.
Yeah, I struggled a lot. With that. It does take a lot for a man to surrender, because
when you're supposed to make it happen,
we have to produce results.
Exactly.
We have to produce results.
Yeah.
And it's hard let alone to trust another person. Now imagine trusting God when somebody doesn't have a relationship with God. It's like, bro, you telling me to let thin air, you know, take care of this for me, bro? I'm right here right now. I got to take care of this today.
God is not thin air, bro.
I know. But I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's
when you don't know.
What it feels like when you're in it. When you don't have a relationship. Like, when I didn't have a relationship, it's like I feel like I'm talking to nobody, man. Like,
yeah.
But that's why sometimes when I started praying, I would pray. I was like, God, like, bro, I don't even know if I believe in you. I'm sorry, but that's how I prayed. I was like, I don't even know if I believe in you, or I don't know if I'm talking to thin air right now, or if you're there.
Yeah.
I was like, but I need, like, confirmation. I need this to happen. I need a result. Like, Yeah, when I would pray like that, like God
And then
would be
you
like,
would
all
get
right,
it.
boom, and I'll be like, all right, like so.
That's crazy because the Bible says, like, seek and you shall find.
Mm-hmm.
Like, knock at the door,
Yeah.
you know? And I have heard this a lot, like, ask God, not test God, ask God,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And I think, I don't know, like, I think when I ask, I'm like, Lord, if you want to, it doesn't come as like, as a daughter in a sense, or
Mhm.
like the belonging again, because going back to it, I'm like, I don't know what it's like to have a dad, right? I was not taught. We don't ask for people for things.
Yeah.
That was the way I was raised. You don't ask. If it's offered, you take. And if it's not,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you don't ask, because that was considered rude, right? So that's one thing. Because I didn't have a dad, I don't know how to ask.
That's true. Me too. Because I didn't have that guidance. Like, I went through everything by myself. I felt that I had to carry my weight because I learned everything by myself.
Yeah.
I learned how to use a camera by myself. I learned how to drive by myself. I learned how to open up my own business by myself. I learned everything by myself. I'm learning how to be a dad by myself.
Yeah. And that's crazy because same, right? Both of us, same thing. And I think that's where we become one and we become strong.
Yeah.
Because we grew up together and we had no guidance together. So you learned all of that, how to be a man by yourself. And I've had to kind of learn how to be a woman by myself.
Mm-hmm.
I had to learn how to be a wife by myself, how to cook by myself, how to be a mom, a leader, a woman even. Like how to
Mhm.
even be feminine. Like I'm working at that
Yeah.
by myself, right?
Yeah.
Hence all the books I have, because I'm like, these are my friends. These are my mentors. These
Mhm.
teach me how to be,
Yeah.
right? And that's where the Lord ties us all, you and I, in, right? You're like, I'm seeking God to lead me in how to provide, how to bring home, how to raise the boys.
Yeah.
And same, right? And even the reason for the podcast, because we're like, we were taught, like, not, I don't want to say self-taught. I mean, I think it's God's grace over our lives. And I really do believe now that if we have walked this narrow road in a sense alone, it's for a reason. And it's to bring everyone else along. And now we know how to do it. We've been doing this for 10 years now. And I know that sounds kind of a little like, what, 10 years? But like compared to our friends our age that are barely jumping into it and don't know how to do it, we have gone through a lot.
We've gone through so much.
That the Lord has redeemed us from, you know. And I don't think either of us can say, I mean, I'll speak for myself. Like, I can't say that I did it on my own. It was all through the Lord's grace and the Lord's leadership over our life, because we share this together, really.
I think I can say I did it on my own, but for that there was consequences.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? I did it
Yeah.
on my own, and I chose to not let God into the picture, and I chose to carry this weight by myself as a man, and I had no guidance,
And it
and
elongated
that
the
had
process.
consequences, and we could have been better a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I learned the hard way, and I remember early on hearing, like, you know, go by yourself, make mistakes, you learn the hard way, you just keep pushing, and I took pride in
Yeah.
that before. But yeah, when you apply that to family, it's like you don't want to learn the hard way, because there's risk of falling into cycles,
And everyone feels it when you're in family now,
and you affect everybody.
right?
Yeah.
Both can say that at the root cause was like the lack of identity, right? And for me, it was the lack of not having a father figure to lead me through it. And again, all my great qualities, I would say, are thanks to my mom and thanks to the Lord. And then all the parts that were broken, I think, have a lot to do with parts that were missing. Obviously, I think it happens with everyone. But for me, then, when I surrendered my life to the Lord, and then he started bringing that healing of not having a dad, I could now find my identity alone in Christ, right? Like how I was saying, like, you can strip me of everything and I know who I am, because my identity is just, it's in the Lord. And it sounds a little cliche maybe, but knowing, because I've allowed God to kind of, I've invited him into the process of my pain, you know, and when you allow him in, he's able to heal those areas. So I would say for me, that's what's helped me so much. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I can say the same. I think that's still a place that I'm learning. You know, I'm still growing, and like, but I do feel 100% like, all right, man, God, you could do better than I can. You know,
Yeah.
so I don't feel the pressure of having to carry everything on my own. All I know is that I can do my best every day. You know,
Yeah.
day in and day out. Like, God won't do the work for us, but he'll guide us, protect us, and we still have to show up and do this. Like, even this
Like
podcast,
he leads
this
us.
podcast will not blow up just because God says, "Oh, I'm gonna blow you up." Boom. It's like, no, you and I still have to show up every single day and do the work
Oh yeah.
and film and wake up early
And
and
discipline.
discipline, and we have to do that work, and God will bless it. And
In due
you know,
time.
the pressure that I had was my career, and it's like, all right, let me still show up and work hard and be strategic and do all that stuff. But at the end of the day, like, at the same time, I know God will bless it, and I just have to continue showing up and doing my thing. So yeah, I think that's still a space that I can be much better
Growing
at,
in.
but I'm growing in,
Right.
but I've definitely let go more than I was trying to hold on to before,
Yeah.
you know.
And which one do you think is better?
This way's better
Walking
because
through it with the Lord.
yeah, because again, I could do so much better. I don't read my Bible all the time. I don't pray all the time.
That's
I do pray
alright.
way more now. But
you've invited the Lord into the process now.
yeah. But that's the best way to do it, because now I don't feel this again. I just don't feel that weight
Right.
of like it's all on me. Cuz man, when I felt that, it was the most stressful thing, you know.
Yeah.
It was the most stressful thing.
Yeah.
That's when, as a man, you could feel low. You feel like you want to quit. You feel like this is too much. You feel like you can't do it.
Yeah.
It's because you're trying to do it by yourself, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And that just reminds me of that verse that says, "Come to me if you're weary and heavy laden."
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the Lord says, like, "I will give you rest for your soul, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light."
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you're saying, when you're not walking equally yoked with the Lord, or yoked, you know, the yoke is like a thing that,
Yeah.
do you know what it is?
Yeah.
The
So
two
basically,
animals
when
have.
I don't know what kind of animal they put it on, but like
Yeah.
when you picture like when they have the two animals walking through the farm and it's carrying something, whether it's like dropping seeds or like whatever, like splitting the ground. I don't know what you call that, but the yoke is the thing that attaches the two animals, so that when they're walking together, they're walking at the same speed and they're moving together. Without that,
So you move left, he moves left. You move right, he moves right.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so crazy to think about, like, my yoke is easy and my burden is light.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we're walking with that, like, hand in hand with the Lord, it feels easier. It's not easier,
Yeah.
but the presence of God makes it
Yeah.
like calm,
Yeah.
you know, like peaceful,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's walking through a storm, but you're like, you know what? Like, I just picture this, like, everything around you is burning,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm at peace because God's got it,
Yeah.
you know? And so that part, that's what
Mhm.
I'm trying to ask you, like, is that how you felt now, right? Because before I was like, I'm doing it by myself. God, I don't want you because I'm scared that you're not going to do it my way. So I kind of don't want to give it to you because
Yeah.
these are my plans. And then through the process and everything we've had to go through, I think that, I mean, God has been so gracious and so patient
Mhm.
with you and with us. But now it's like surrendering and slowly picking it up, because you're really slowly practicing something that you haven't done in a long time.
Mhm.
So that's like building a new muscle of faith
Yeah.
for you. And
Yeah.
right now thinking
Yeah.
like, I'm surrendering, and Lord, I'm inviting you into this new season of life, per se, of trusting you.
Yeah. And what that looks like practically in my life is basically like I don't get as stressed when things start to go wrong.
Yeah.
And again, I'm mainly talking about career and business. I don't get as stressed, but I also recognize when I make mistakes and I'm like, okay, I got to fix that. That's on me still. Like, but I think letting God into that process, I think is part of what lets me be like not so stressed and not so hard on
Right.
myself. Because remember, I was so hard on myself for a long time. I was like, even when I was doing great work, I was like, no, it sucks. It could be better. Like, boom, because I didn't
Yeah.
want to give myself the credit yet. Because I was like, just
Yeah.
it didn't. I was just, but again, that was falling into the people pleasing me, where I was like, it could be better. It could be better. It's not good enough for them. Yeah. But now now I feel less stress. But still, I also recognize, and I love the leaders that talk about like it still takes work. You still have to
Absolutely.
do the work.
Absolutely.
I love when people say that, because I feel like at some point you were even like, just trust God, like, and I was like, but put the work behind it, like
sure.
real work, because at the end of the day, I've gone through that, and I'm like, it takes real work to truly do something. For us to do this, it takes real work.
Oh, yeah.
And
Discipline.
we're just getting started.
Yeah.
We're gonna get better, guys. Like, where the goal is get this up to once a week, and maybe one day twice a week when we have guests and all that. Who knows? But we're getting in our rhythm right now.
Yeah.
But this is gonna take real work, and then
Yeah.
God will bless it too.
For sure.
But we still have to live up to
Yeah.
that work ethic. And
I think the area where, excuse me, the area where I may learn to trust God is like financially speaking. Because you're like talking about career, and I feel like, I think everyone at some point feels like financially, especially in this economy. And I'm like, trust the Lord. But it's never been like, just chill back and just, no, like the Bible says, do not be lazy. Do not be lazy. That's for like the weak people.
yeah.
And it tells you in the Proverbs, like the ants work for their food, and so we have to do that. Even like with the virtuous woman, it says like she does not eat from the like she does not allow idleness, like laziness.
Yeah.
And so it is always trust God, invite God into the process, and the Lord gives you ideas.
Yeah.
The Lord gives you ideas, and that's the part that I mean. Trust the Lord in the process.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, it's like, I don't know, surrendering it to God always, I think for us, for me, I know it will always be that. Surrender it to the Lord. Your marriage, surrender it to the Lord. Your children, surrender it. And it doesn't mean, here, God, fix it. No. Surrendering means the Lord is going to lead you through it. Oh, your marriage is failing. Why? And the Lord will show you, girl. If it's you, the Lord will show you. And now when the Lord shows you, it's, okay, not getting offended with God, but saying, okay, God, yeah, you're right. I am lacking. As a wife, I am lacking. It's what happened to me, right? I am lacking. I'm putting all this pressure on you that you can't do. I have to fix it. Lord, how do I fix this? Right? Going back to that whole identity thing, like everything, when I mean surrender it to God, it doesn't mean, here, God, take care of it, make me rich, give me a house, teach me how to do it, like teach me how to fish. And that's where the Lord is so good at, because like you said, like even this podcast, everything we do, your work, because you're an entrepreneur, the podcast, homeschooling, everything takes discipline. And I love that about the Lord, because he is a good father.
Yeah.
He's gonna teach us how to do it.
Yeah.
And it takes discipline.
Yeah.
And then when we follow the Lord, boom, 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 we get the results.
And even if
he
it gets
blesses
hard,
it.
and even if we mess up, then we're like, all right, he, get us through that season.
And he blesses it at the end of the day.
You
And in due time, man, I'm so excited.
in due time. Just know, guys, we've been a little bit inconsistent with our last few episodes, and we're learning. Like even with the last
for
one,
sure.
The editing took a little bit longer because we felt that we weren't as prepared for the conversation without a script. So we're walking into every episode, we're learning a little something on how to make it better for you guys. We want to make this something that's so easy for you guys to listen to, and that it's truly valuable, and hopefully you guys are learning something. Man, I think this is a good time to close out.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say, like, if you're someone who feels like you've lost your identity or you don't know who you are, because, man, we get it. Like, again, we've been there.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of us are adults, but not even to this day have been, like, said, I love you from your mom or your dad, or had a hug that says, hey, I'm sorry for the ways I failed you. We just want to remind you that, like, your identity, first off, being able to forgive, right? That's where so much freedom lies, in forgiveness, and surrendering. But even knowing, like, that you've already been chosen by the Lord, and he knows every detail about you. If you read Psalm 139, you won't. He knows the hairs of your head. He knows when you rise, when you lay. He knows all the details, and, like, he loves you and he calls you. And so, because this episode is on identity, just know, like, you've already been chosen already by the one who created everything. And we just want to wrap it up here. We hope that this episode has been so helpful. And, we don't ever want to highlight who we are, but just are being open and vulnerable and having conversation in hopes that it helps you guys in whatever area of your life you're in. So we love you guys. Thank you so much for being here, for watching this. Thank you for your comments, for the feedback. Just thank you so much.
Yeah.
And if this was helpful to you, it's helpful to us when you guys share it. It's like a little cliche to say, but it does help us,
Like, comment, subscribe, all of those things help, man.
Yeah,
they really do. It's gonna get our channel boosted, and again, we want to be able to spend more time doing this, and there's so much that we have planned and so much in store. This is literally just the beginning, and I think these next 6 months is just gonna continue to be us figuring it out and getting a little bit better but I'm telling you, in 1 year we're gonna be foot on the gas hard doing this content thing, and doing it well, and also the challenge of maintaining a good balance at home, even with everything we got going on. Like, that's another thing. Like, our kids are not watching TV, they're not on an iPad right now, and it's like we have spoke about, like, hey, we don't want to let them do that just because we're doing this,
right.
And so we're trying to maintain still just a healthy balance all around. But
so you hear all the noise in the background.
Yeah, you hear all the noise in the background. That's going to be normal.
Shh, we're almost done. Yeah.
But thank you guys again. We love you guys, and we can't wait to hear what you guys think about this episode. And again, hope you guys got some value from it.
Yeah. And just remember, your identity does not lie in who you are or the things that have been done or any of that. It lies that just because the Lord created you, he loves you, and there's new mercy every day, and you're a son and you're a daughter. That's it. So it's a wrap. We love you guys. Bye. Adios.